4:30-ish, and we are calling to order the regular meeting of the CCHC on. It is a regular meeting?
It is a special
It
meeting.
is a special meeting.
We're all special.
No, we're all special too.
It just means that the subject matter is
Yeah,
restricted.
no, I
not
was
required.
just going off the minutes. So, edit the minutes. It's a special meeting on February 22nd. You can call the roll, Gordon.
Yes, Chair Dostart.
Here.
Vice Chair Howe.
Here.
Member David.
Here.
Member Dilbo.
Yeah.
Member Fisher.
Here.
Member Meridew.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, and we have both of our liaisons here. Thank you for coming. Public comments for any items on the agenda. I see no members of the public. Is anybody here? Nope. Okay, no public comments. We're closed. We have no minutes to approve. Wonderful. Civic Center building design. So before, tonight I'm gonna do something a little differently. Before you guys kick off your comments on your revised design, I thought it wouldn't hurt to give some context for the next few meetings as we're thinking about the design. So, we have a public meeting scheduled on the 21st. Paul's not here, but I don't know if Teresa's not here. Do we know if we mailed the new postcard, or are they waiting on that for tomorrow? Because I got the other postcard came today in my mail.
Oh my gosh.
I got it today in Palo Alto. Yeah, it came in today's mail. Maybe it was Saturday, but.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
they're
got
not-
mine the very next day.
Okay, well, maybe,
Yeah.
we don't mail the Palo Alto. But anyway, so we are scheduled for, right now our schedule is tonight, 2 weeks from now on the 7th, and the 21st. And the 21st is the public meeting with full presentation documents. And so if we want to make if that's gonna be a reality, what that means is, really tonight is the last time to change anything, if that's what we choose to do. And then the 7th will be literally, do we like the changes, and are we releasing you to make your full production things for a big public meeting, which means a lot bigger things and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to call that out in the context of how much time do we have left to work on things if we're gonna make the public meeting on the 21st. And then I think with that, the floor is yours to present the other thing.
And maybe just something to think about as we go through that. It probably would take us at least a couple weeks to develop the kind of drawings that you want to present. So keep that in mind. The more time, the better. The library has been in a good place, but it needs to be brought in so that they look like a unified civic center that we're presenting. So the more time we can get.
Do you have a library drawing tonight when you go through this to show us, so we can see how they juxtapose?
Yeah, we have the old one, so we can.
You do,
cook it
yeah,
up.
okay. That would
Yeah.
probably be worth doing, because we haven't seen it in a very long time, and particularly juxtaposed to a building that's 100% traditional,
Right.
as opposed to one that morphs from one end to the other.
Yeah.
So, great. All
Okay,
right.
so, I'll just start off by saying that I thought last week, 2 weeks ago was a very good meeting. It seemed like we were getting closer and honed in. And so we can always tell by the fact that the list gets smaller and smaller. So 4 items that we're gonna go over today, John and Adam are gonna lead us through that. But just as a reminder, really there were, the 4 buckets were about the pinched entry feeling at the Fair Oaks. So there was a lot of talk about working on the Fair Oaks elevation and then how that might shift to the plaza elevation, but really looking at that entry and how it felt as you moved through it into the plaza. The very specific ask to get rid of the shutters because it seemed to be not quite of the language that the committee was looking for. So that is clear in what we're showing. The comment about it being a little softer, so I think you'll see a little bit more detail in the elevations. And then some talk about varied roof eaves. Now, just as a side, different eaves in the roof plane. So we also talked about some details using Steve Ackley's small little one pager as a reference. And the team looked at that, and Adam and John can kind of go through some of the things we talked about that aren't really represented in what you got this morning. if that would help in the discussion. And there were things like a response to the ask for a tower, a response to maybe a cleaner elevation, so we can go through that too. But we're really excited about what we have to show you. I think we feel that we're very, 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 very close, we hope, to what you're looking for. So with that, don't ruin it. Take it away.
John, you want to lead off and then
Sure.
I'll jump in?
Yeah.
Thanks, Pauline. Okay, so I'll actually start over here with the site plan, but I'm going to pull them up on the screen as well. So we've tried to list, and you guys will see it on your site plan and the handouts as well, a few more critical dimensions just along the site plan to give you a sense of scale for some of these open spaces. So there is an area list for all of the associated landscape areas on the site, just to give you a sense of the overall open space. Also some critical dimensions, just to give you a sense of the massing of the building. And I kind of want to start in there. This was a comment, I believe, Elizabeth, you had last go around, which had to do with just the massing at the admin building from Fair Oaks. We talked a lot about Fair Oaks. I think for the most part, most people were feeling pretty good about the Civic Court, which is great. And so what we'll talk about here, and I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between the two, but you can see the revised massing here of previous option 1. Notice the admin building, our handy guide here, this was the previous. So you can kind of see immediately here, just the width has been adjusted, and also the notion that it's actually been set back. So this, if I had a third hand here. This facade here is actually pushed closer in. So in the previous go-round, this dimension was 22 feet from this face to the outboard face of the admin building. We've since pushed that in 8 feet. We've actually skinnied it up about 9 feet. So it's got less mass to it. We also paid some attention to the detail of the setback on the upper story. Previously, I think we showed that at about 2 feet. We're looking now, it could be anywhere from 3 to 4 feet, so a little bit more depth on that pushback. There were some other comments, and I think you'll read it in the fenestration or the windows on that upper story. The comment was to go a little softer up there, and so you can see actually more plaster coming in and framing those windows.
And that was kind of a response to making it softer. If the response was, this looks too office park, a la, Silicon Valley, right, which is a very flush front, windows right up to the face of it. What we started to do here is add more definition and depth, right? So a little bit more plaster and then soften that, as John was saying.
And one of the things that's actually an interesting result of this kind of shifting and scaling down of the admin building is just what it does to the court space. So the Fair Oaks court actually gets a little more broad, a little bigger, and I think it actually gives some more space where some of these great activity kind of spaces could occur. You actually get 2 zones that start to form, where one is very much about entry. So again, a terracotta paved entryway into the loggia here in the scheme. Central door to bring you into the building, so we put the door here right on center, but with 2 flanking sets of glass, so you get a really nice sense of openness into the space. We've been talking a little bit about detail, and it's always, we want to jump to that detail as well and take you there. So some of the things that we thought about, this is a 24-hour building, so there's reality, it's going to need some lighting. And we want to keep that lighting in a way that's consistent. So you already have great gas light lamps that are out on the site, and so I think there's some way we can kind of borrow from that form and detailing too, and the way we may address lanterns on the building itself. So kind of a 24-hour facility. Some talk about depth as well. So the great images that you brought from Steve Ackley, there were some really cool moments in there. In particular, one that I thought was really great was where there was actually a setback, right? And it's literally an exterior corridor. Now we know that's not always the best idea, especially for leaks, roof, a little more money in that. But there is an opportunity here where we can really start to play up that depth, especially in a way that, in a place where with the police department, security is actually a big concern. So pulling that chief's office back from the facade actually and giving a little more depth that we thought was actually a pretty good idea. Some of the other,
On that corner, I'm just looking at the floor plan.
yeah, the upper.
And you've got it on the corner, and so,
Yeah, that would be, so if you look, let me jump a couple slides ahead here.
is
that
So-
a balcony?
Can I ask a favor, can we, yeah, if we can go through,
I'm sorry.
log the question if you can, it's in, but we can get him all the way through, it'd be really wonderful.
I get excited too, so I
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
excited. Probably go on. But with the chief's office, so that what we're showing here on that page, this is the second floor at the lower. The chief's
I don't
office
see
would
it on
actually
the
be set
exterior.
back.
It's an innie.
it's an
innie.
innie.
It's an innie. So what you have is a setback. I'm going to point to a section really quick. Right here, this is an architectural section that just really is cut right through the main entrance of the building. Right? But that same lower roof eave drives all the way across the facade. So you have a depth here, right? Of over, it looks like we've got over 10 feet of depth for that lower volume pushing out. So if you were to look at the Chiefs area there, you can imagine that cut there. You'd have the facade in line with the whole facade of Fair Oaks, but the actual window wall would be in a few feet. It's like a fake balcony. That's a better way.
We don't
But there's
imagine the
depth
chief
to it.
necessarily out in that space, but it would just be the roofing would continue, and you'd have an opportunity there for more shadow, acoustic separation, privacy.
Can you put the image, the last
Sure.
meeting's image up on there so we can look at it?
And so just to kind of continue to move. So there was also some conversation about the windows and trying to find a way to unify the windows in a way that makes sense for the building. Now, if we were to make every window the same on the building, it would be pretty boring, right? And also each window has different intent, right? Whether it's different spaces, different orientation. So we're trying to find a sweet spot between what would be on the top row here, the upper story windows, and then on the lower story windows. And so some of the studies we had done here were really focused on depth and materiality. How does the window return back? You know, we've talked a lot about the traditional architecture has a good sense of depth and shadow. And so some of the things we looked at, in this case, for instance, it may be an outboard frame, something that frames the window, whether it's stone or precast, to give a little more dimension, a little more quality, kind of visually enlarges the window. Another one, which we actually felt pretty strongly about, was to return the window instead of reveal. And so that's actually what you can see here, represented in the option on the board, is that you can imagine a plaster return that again will kind of scale up the size of the opening, but in reality the window can be kept a little smaller for privacy on that lower story for people who be walking by.
So you still get a larger sense of opening and rhythm and shadow across the facade, but it keeps the amount of glass at something that's a little bit more scaled and not as large as what we're looking at in the prior scheme. So a little bit more plaster, a little bit more depth. There's also an opportunity for color in that recess. And when we say recess and depth, we're just talking, it could be 1.5 to 2 inches. You know, we're just talking little bits of recess and inset that helps give visual kind of clarity to that facade.
Is the length of that wall the admin
Excuse me.
wall?
Hey, if we can, I would
I
love
didn't-
to keep that
just-
going, and then we'll get a little detail. If that's okay, if you guys don't mind, I'd sure love to
Sure.
move it all, Once the ball starts down, All right, thank you.
Okay, so I think just a couple other points to just kind of round out some of the other options, the details of the option here. So there was also a little bit of conversation about varying roofline, playing with eave. Again, I think there was a lot of people were feeling pretty good about this as an element, bringing it through. It seemed to scale down, brought the clay tile a little closer. And so we thought, maybe we have opportunities too on this corner to scale that down. And so for a volume here where the stair has been located in the admin building, we do have a degree of flexibility there in how that facade can work. It's not programmatically demanded. So that was an opportunity where we could actually punch and create kind of a special moment, pulling that space out. Just slight, doesn't have to be a lot, it can be just a little bit to kind of break up that facade a little bit. Again, about light and shadow, that's right on the south corner, so it's going to get good kind of dynamic quality of shadow through the day. What you can see here, so we have the 3-arched entry here into the building from the Civic Court. Again, entry on center, so in the center arch there. Similarly, an upper story, which is very much in keeping with what you can see up above. But if you'll notice, so we've studied here the 3 arches. If you remember previously, I believe we had 4 arches on that version. So there was some comment to kind of reduce that back down to 3. But what I wanted to call attention to was actually the entrance to the council chamber. And this was something that we started to pick up on what's going on in the existing council chamber here. And it's actually a really great moment where you have the plaster wall, really nice blank plaster wall, it's just white. But then around it is a frame, what looks to be precast concrete, basically detail of that frame. It's really elegant, actually. It's very Atherton. It's got leaves framed in a way that seems to work really well. And it calls out in a subtle way, using shadow and texture difference, the entrance. And so we thought that's a really nice device, maybe inset on the arch. It gives us an opportunity to kind of pull the eye to that, and again, give a little more presence to the entry. And there's nothing to say that we couldn't actually consider something like that if we wanted to distinguish maybe even just the center arch, where we have that entrance along both the Fair Oaks and Civic Court facade as well.
It brings in a
These
conversation
two are
about
different, just, you presented, so that, the new one in the middle is different than, it's like the People magazine where you're supposed to find what's different. So you've got sconces, the detailing's more on this rendering than the one, which one are you presenting?
This is the latest and the greatest.
This one here,
A more
okay, got
detailed.
it. Thank you.
And it leads into what John was just talking about in terms of, you know, the entry and the archway leads into a really nice conversation about materiality and detail. It's a very simple palette we're working with now, right, which really kind of reflects the palette of this building, which is the red clay tile, lots of smooth, you know, light colored plaster. And then you've got these moments where you have niches and recesses that are these highlights, these accents, right? There's a large conversation we'll be having about what those are. But when it comes to the arch, you know, we don't want the plaster to come all the way down to the ground. That's probably not the best detail from a maintenance standpoint and just overall thing. You want it to land on something, and it gives the building a base. So on both of these, you'll see an articulated base. It could be tile, it could be concrete, it could be stone. It's something we'd like to really study as we move forward into the later phases of design. But it's a really nice kind of element that could kind of come along and in maybe some cases actually roll up and over and frame something. If it's special, we want to accent it, right? It's just another opportunity to kind of bring a little bit more detail and materiality into it as opposed to what we showed you previously, which was just super simple, right? It was really more about massing and opening, but now we're starting to crack the seal on materiality and how that plays into it, right? So it's a really nice conversation around that. And just one other thing we were kind of interested in, you'll see here, right, there are these little recesses. Some of them are fenestrations that might lead into a space and provide a little kind of frame window. Others might be something where it's not. It's actually tiled or it's filled. And one of the things we saw recently that was kind of interesting on a building in Piedmont was actually they had taken red tile, right, from an old building, and they had basically kind of set them on top of one another, right, and used them to fill these niches and really beautiful long kind of garden walls. And we've got a lot of red tile next door on this building. It's really beautiful, right? Now, granted, I don't think we can afford to use all of that tile on this building, but if we could recycle some of that tile, bring it in as a historic element, a naming element, things like that, you could really start to grab some of the old library materials and start to sprinkle them across the building in some really wonderful ways. So there's a nice opportunity there for that building to kind of, you know, make its way into the new construction. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah, so then just to reiterate, so kind of a little more detail in that lobby area. We wanted to make sure that we could kind of show how that portico might work. So just to give a sense of scale, then some kind of, let me bring this guy over.
Got it.
So what we're actually looking at here, if I were to mask that off, it's literally that portion of the facade there.
Right.
And yeah, and then there's a cut taken right through here, and that gives us our section on the upper left. So we just wanted to be able to explain kind of the proportion of the space a little better. You can see kind of what is that, about a 5'10", that's me standing there. And so this is an 11-foot high opening.
Top of the arch.
Top of the arch, 8 feet wide, and each column is about 2 feet by 2 feet.
Yeah, so there's thickness and depth.
And then the actual depth of that portico space itself is another 8 feet, so a good sort of balanced proportion between the opening and the depth. And then you can see kind of the rigor as well, and how those upper story windows then fall in line with the structure below, setting up a rhythm for the openings up above, which is really structurally makes a lot of sense, but also it's going to be great in terms of the shadow and light. There's going to be really kind of a nice alignment through the day in that space.
And then again, it opens up opportunities in these porticos. What we're showing in plan is there's an opportunity where you can actually walk into that portico on the way into the building, and on either side of it, there could be a bench, there could be a niche, which is kind of shown here in the poche, an opportunity for signage or dedication, and that was one of the other things we're asked to kind of look at. So it's another opportunity there to kind of brighten that space up, make it have a little more purpose to it than just a covered walkway.
So before you go there,
Yeah.
so you noticed that there was some added scribbling over the drawing to sort of as there was more thought and the team was living and dreaming with it. They also decided to not sleep this weekend. So there is another version that we thought we wouldn't show, but since we're doing so well, maybe we would just show a little bit of it.
Go for
You
it.
sure? 'Cause we don't want to throw a wrench
Yeah.
into it. But
Does it have wood shutters?
We're used to
No.
Is it modern?
Yes.
Does it have a different
No, actually,
elevation?
so
Yeah.
It has a different elevation?
Is
It's
it
very
modern
nice.
or is it state of the art?
It's
We're
Yeah.
used to wrenches.
Yeah.
It's not it's the most beautiful one.
I think you have to show it. but
Now you have
there
to.
is some- yeah.
So it's not
We've
colored
been trying to
because I
narrow
was.
down options, I add them.
So this is sort of that next step, but it still works, and maybe you guys can talk a little bit about what it means for the plan.
I said something like that, but yeah,
Well, when there were some other comments, I mean, there were a lot of comments from the last meeting, right, about this dimension and the feeling that there was, this was occupied too much space, it pinched, and there was, I think, a desire at one time for symmetry, for kind of a balance or a flatness across that whole facade. So I think what we've been kind of shaking through, and it's not fully baked, but we actually thought it was interesting to kind of see, is it, what if you did move that admin bar, right, replan it, which we've done some conceptual replanning on, to try to get it to fit within really that front facade of the main building. So this basically is really, I'm gonna draw, this is all kind of in line, right? There's no kind of bump out. There is a small 3-foot drawer, 1-story drawer that gets pulled out, right? Barely, I mean, we're talking just 3 feet from the facade, and it just sets up a much broader, flatter, I'm gonna say more civic, one might even argue, maybe less residential, more civic, we thought, kind of entrance, right? It really presents the whole building facade to Fair Oaks, where this one has a little bit of a shoulder as you're coming down Fair Oaks from the west.
And Adam, as that drawer pushes in, how much more into the closet could you
So
explain that?
it would basically, I'm gonna point to it right here, maybe it's better in plan. So what you have here, this, I'll show it here, it's probably easier. We have this 1-story kind of lower eave that wraps all the way around the whole facade of that area. And it's in front of this building by about 6 feet, right? So by replanning that to get more flatness on Fair Oaks, we have to move that mass somewhere. That mass starts to eke into the courtyard a bit, but we think we can actually align it with this face, right? So what happened is you have this 1-story element that then reaches up and becomes a 2-story element there. It brackets that side of the courtyard, right? So they really align, because right now, the way it's drawn, it comes and it actually goes back, right? This little element, as it connects to the main lobby space, actually is out in front of that facade. So in this idea, it would align. Right? The idea here for depth is a little bit different. We probably lose the portico a bit, but that's not, we don't think, the end of the world. You'd have your doors and windows a little bit closer to the front based on the planning. And then the windows above the entrance there, those would be set back farther into that facade by about 3 feet, I think is what we thought. So these windows, 1, 2, 3, all of those set back in, right over that entranceway, and kind of mimic these windows here. These windows, same plane, those come up to the front of the building. So it's the same window read, so it's a pretty consistent line, but you have more depth to the facade. So that was really in response to kind of this idea of how far could you move that element back? We heard that was a concern, right? And then on this side of the building, as in all, Spanish mission style, there are areas of just quietness, right, and materiality. There's areas of just blankness, right? And we think there are ways we could start to think about how a fountain might be a part of that building on that area there. I beg your pardon?
Campanile.
So that fountain in this area would kind of lock into that zone, that patio, and really kind of set up a nice kind of balance from the opposite side of the building. So that was the other idea, right? One that has really a little bit kind of scooted back, and one that scoots it back about as far as we possibly could scoot it.
So surprisingly, it doesn't impinge on the plaza as much as we all thought.
Right. It kind of fills in the interior a
Was
bit
the
more.
other worry, right?
Okay, are you guys about ready to
Yes.
wrap this so we can go around? 'Cause I think you can feel people itching to talk, and all of us.
I would like to
We're all
just address the
ready to talk a
Campanile
little bit.
as well. So we did actually look at the Campanile study in terms of proportion. Now, if you recall, there is a 34-foot high setback, or not setback, but height limit restriction in the city. We tried to find a way maybe we could get around that, right? So we did look into, we know that the radio tower here at the existing police department is something that maybe potentially, if we're relocated, could be shrouded. That was something we checked into. Turns out it's technically probably not the best response, which it's too bad, but we thought maybe we could check that out. The intent of bringing that over and thinking maybe we could shroud it was, it helps you get a better proportion, right? I mean, if we were to say, 34 feet high, that's our Campanile limit, so we're gonna take the Campanile up to 34 feet high. It would only get us a few feet, which isn't really a lot of oomph, right? It's not immediately visible as a sort of orientation device, which is really traditionally what the strongest suit of a Campanile is. It kind of brings you in line with that civic space. So without going above the 34 feet, we think it's pretty difficult to actually achieve a campanile that's going to kind of give you that extra oomph and kind of identify it. So I just wanted to kind of touch to that. But, you know, the 34-foot aside, then potentially there could be something. No, I think it's probably in the order of, Adam and I were talking about this, another story taller. So that would be another 14, 15 feet above 34 feet to really give it that identifiability in the right proportion to kind of function as a campanile.
Thank you. Is that, are you guys ready?
So,
Okay, why don't we just go, would you like to start, Elizabeth?
No,
You sure? Okay, why don't, Christine, you wanna start at your end, or?
No, that's
So
fine.
anybody who wants to start.
Yeah, I
Right.
really like the improvements to the new building, the one on the right. I personally, just as a matter of personal taste, like the difference in depth between the right-hand side and the left-hand side, the one we've been working on, but that's just my taste. I really like how you inset the windows down below, and I think that's really great details, and I love the tiling around the archways and around the base. It's really wonderful. I guess the tradition of blank walls, I understand that it's part of that tradition. It's not my favorite. I always want to put something there, but that's just personal. My only concern is if we took the building completely flat in the front, I was worried about spaces for community events because that's what everybody keeps getting excited about, so I keep talking about it. So that would be my only concern is where would those, you know, how much smaller is that getting when we push everything back? That's about it.
Gary?
Pretty similar comments. I like the first version you guys showed. I like what you've done with the downstairs windows and the setbacks and just making those more interesting. I like the more white space between the windows. I think that brings a little more residential look to it. I like what you've done with the Chiefs area up there. I think that adds some interest to that side of the building. Still below it looks a little blank to me, so a little too quiet. But and I think on the back side it just looks a little funky in that same area. but outside of that, I really like the simplicity, and I do like the idea of bringing some kind of tile throughout the project.
Okay, Rick?
I like what you've done. I like the image on the right better than the one on the left. I agree with what Christine said about the depth, and I agree with what others have said about the blank wall. Though, you know, I think that it is consistent with what I've seen throughout California in this Mission or Santa Barbara style. So it's not a big comment for me. There are a couple comments I do have. So in the image to the left on the council chambers, I actually like those windows on either side of the arch better than the sconces. I think that might have been restrooms in that image over there, I'm not sure. So maybe, you know, maybe they don't work now, but I think that breaks up that facade and makes it more interesting. I like the narrower appendage coming off the council chambers that you've got in the right image. I just like those windows. Two other comments that I have is, we haven't really talked about what the wall material is, but you've shown an image in, I think every time, of a fairly rough wall, the one with the little holes in it. And this is a rough wall, and it looks to me like there's a concrete form that's been used on that, and I much prefer the smooth wall. And then the final comment I have is, when I'm looking at the image, either one of these, the image from the central court and looking up at the roof tile, I can see the roof tile on the left. You don't see it on the right, which is good, and we've made that into solar panels. But there is an angle of tile, which is this little angle right in here that you don't see because it's over the eave, and that's pretty south facing. So I'm thinking that might be amenable to being solar panels, and given that this is one of our few non-tree and obstructed positions where we can, you know, maximize electricity generation, I I'd like to see us at least plan for that, even if we don't put it in immediately.
Okay, so thank you guys, really, great work. I really appreciate, kind of working through all of our directions and suggestions and everything. So, my initial feeling about the one on the right was that it still didn't have, to me, the wow factor of our Civic building. It's a big improvement, and I like sort of what you've done with the windows on the ground floor, on the first floor. But I've seen other images of windows treatments where there's like a cluster of windows that seem that maybe it could be different. But I like the inset, I like the definition of the windows and the more plaster around them and that softness. In looking at, and obviously this is the only plan that we had a chance to take a look at, and thank you for including the interior with that plan. So in looking at what it did to the interior, and maybe it's been this way all the time and I've not taken a hard look at it, but it seems like it makes the main lobby quite large, and I see the planning, the public works, the post office, and I guess the building department counter there. That's kind of an L shape. Is that all of the counter that we will have designed in this area? And I was just wondering what the dimension of that was or is, because I think all along we have said that we need to have a large enough counter for people to spread out plans, and the counter that Orange the Menlo Park building planning department, it is like serpentine, so many people can kind of sit almost privately because it has a curve. Somebody's sitting here like this, and then it turns around and somebody's sitting there, and it gives people an opportunity to have I feel like a private space, and many people having their plans reviewed. So that did not look like it was something, and I know I haven't been involved with the interior designs and I'm not supposed to look at it, but I'm bringing up the comment that it looks like
We're allowed to look at the lobby.
the lobby.
Yeah, you're a councilor, you look at anything you want, but this committee is only allowed to look at the
Okay.
public spaces, yeah.
Well, that's good, but
Yeah.
so it seems like the main lobby is quite large and maybe a lot of potentially wasted space, and the checking counter, the plan check counter and post office counter is relatively small. So I note that you've got, thank you for adding the square footages, the Civic court on both the revised plan and on the old plan that you showed us a couple of weeks ago is still 16,000 square feet. If those calculations are still good. And then I would like to know what the calculation would be with the new plan. I think the new plan has a lot of promise. What I don't like about the new plan is the stone facade, partway up. I think that is not something that I like. I still think that a campanile to add that, to break that up, maybe like a clock tower. And I do believe that for chimneys and other features, sometimes the height limit can be taller than the 34 feet.
I don't think so in this zone.
In
a residential zone it can, but this is a public facility zone.
Oh,
I
in
looked at
this
that
zone,
again.
so see, in my mind, we're keeping into
Right.
the residential zones. Okay, well, I know that we had an architect that gave us a plan, and it was a 2-story building, and there was a campanile in it, and it went straight to the top of the roof line, the limit, and it really made a lot of difference. And I think that you've all seen those plans. It's the Nichols Melber plans. And so something like that could be done, and it would, I think, make some definition. I just think that the one on the left has potential to be more of a civic building, and I've had several comments from residents seeing these plans that it looks like the right-hand side is just like a, you know, a couple blocks put together, and even though that's softer and more pushed back, so that was I wanted to say about the civic court, the square footage, because I agree with Christine that we really want to maximize our outside event space, and we don't want to cut into it. And so it would be nice to know how much this civic court is with that left-hand side.
Elizabeth, did I hear you say you like this one?
I think it has potential. I don't like it exactly as it is, but I think it has, you know, potential.
Mr. Chair, I could point out, staff has been working, and the mayor points out something, that staff has the same concern in terms of the layout of the plans areas so that it would have adequate workspace to accommodate our clients. So we are working on that, and I'm glad you recognize that.
Okay.
You said it's too small?
We're working with them to make sure that it meets the needs for doing the business for counter space.
And again, the windows are not, you know, the doors are not aligned. The three, you know, they're all offset.
And
Maybe that's not a big deal.
And I did send a request to our planner to confirm the 34-foot height limit in this, and I haven't gotten a response back, but as I read it, this zone is unique and with a 34-foot limit. Of course, that's something the council could change.
Well, gee whiz, you know, our residents can, you know, put a.
But the architects were instructed to work with
The zone,
current
of course,
zone.
okay, yeah, so that was my ignorance about that particular, restriction in our, situation here. I'm done,
Okay, great, thank you.
you're welcome.
Bravo. Like, this is the first time I felt like I could feel proud of our committee for coming up with a plan, the one on the right. Thank you for continuing to think about things, but my instinct is we should sail with the one on the right. It does feel to me finally like a single hand. I'm glad whoever used that term, and John, that was exactly what I needed to feel. I thought the back of the building had a feel of a single hand, and the front didn't. It felt like it was an accumulation of things. So now it feels like architecture to me. I am assuming that you will work through with staff when you, that the interior will work out with these exterior changes, and that's not something that we need to fret about. It would be nice in the future, after this has gone to council, and you know, it's found out to the public, and we move to the council, it'd be nice to start looking at interior, the public spaces, so some elevations of the lobby and the counter, the things that we're supposed to look at. And I don't know if that would include the council chambers or not, but we're gonna wanna feel that a little bit, if we're authorized to do so. I think I love this detail on the television screen. That kind of detailing tells me you really get the project now. Like that you're deeply into it, and I think the way you detailed the front entry is going to feel awesome. That's the kind of thing that people will remember. They won't know why it's impressing them, but it will. I think that's lovely, and I think the detail on the windows, you're really getting it above on the second story. I don't know if those are rounded columns or what, but I'm guessing they may be, but it's something soft. I wasn't thrilled that the windows weren't bigger on the first floor, but with the detailing you've done, it totally feels right, so I get it. I like that it's halfway between residential and civic. I think that's Atherton. I think people will be very comfortable with that. I think it's great that the two, because the chief has a different use than George, the building's gonna look like two halves of the building, and I think the fact that it's articulated as two different wings is good. The other comments I heard from other people that I'd like to emphasize were the blank spaces still feel a little blank, the one on the left and the one on the back on the left. It'd be nice to, in the detailing phase to do something. The base treatment is important. My goal would be that it doesn't take away from the building. I think it should be very, very subtle. It shouldn't be, you know, a dark material that screams out base. I like, too bad we don't have enough tile over here to reuse it all. Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, for the whole building, right? Why?
You're
Yeah,
talking about
I just
the
need
roof
to think about
tile,
this.
Steve, is that what you're?
Yeah, it's too bad we don't have enough roof tile in the library to retile the whole building,
Yeah,
because this
take
is
'em off.
gorgeous. To buy this tile is a fortune, you know, to do that
The
building.
addition of the
Yes,
library, by
please.
the way, is a flat roof.
Yeah.
I agree with Rick on his comment about, I don't, I was curious, I didn't even ask it, but we keep showing this concrete board form, which I would never do in Appleton. I think
Appreciate it.
the solar, I think Rick's idea about, if there's a dead space up there on the roof that nobody except a bird is gonna ever see, there's no reason not to take it to solar, right? And why pay for the tile? If it's truly hidden, if you can determine that, I'm glad that Elizabeth pushed for that building to be pushed back on the right. It feels a lot better. I think that was a smart move. The only thing I was sad about the depth of the columns on the front, I would encourage you to carry those to this portico by the council chambers on the side, so it doesn't make the other one feel fake. And then you guys want with the triple arches here in the back, those are little skinny legs versus we have big, thick, yeah, right there. I would thicken those things up.
Wow. You can't even see that.
You will when you go by. Yeah. Well, it just feels thin here.
Well,
Yeah.
that would be in the, detail.
There's one other thing.
Yes, make that is.
Hang on one second. I just don't want to forget. Hang on.
Well, while you're doing that, I have hundreds of those tiles that I'll give to the city.
Hundreds, we need
We need
thousands.
thousands. Yeah.
But if I have hundreds, there probably are.
We could do
other
average.
too.
It would look. It will look far more authentic immediately if we have those tiles than the concrete fake ones.
Absolutely.
It'll just be amazing. Hang on there. I may have one more comment just for you. What were you asking? What is that? I think that's the tile roof looking. You can ask them, but I'm gonna guess that's a
She's
window
asking
line.
what the.
Oh, that's right over the stairs. The image of
The middle
in the
image
middle
on the left.
row, that one. That's the
The
tile
middle-
roof that
yeah,
hangs
like
out in front of those windows.
Yeah, if we cut the building here and look down, so we'd be looking down on this roof surface.
These are the windows above
That's
the
the
lobby.
roof of
See
the
the down.
portico.
Yeah. Oh, I know. The thing that I was sad about was if you, and I just want to make, Elizabeth called it out, I'm just going to double call it out so later nobody has buyer's remorse. It says, why didn't you make this more obvious? So if you look at, can you put this plan up? Or hold it up? And then can you zoom in so you really zoom in on the lobby? Are you able to zoom that thing way in and make the lobby like half the screen or something? Yeah. So this is something that would be nice to design around. I don't know if you can. I'm assuming you can't. So if you see the doors on the left, so the lobby's blue, and the doors on the left, there's a big one in the center, which we all wanted to feel more like a real entry, and the three in the back, and the center one's it. But only one of the bays lines up,
Right.
Barely.
okay? And it's 8 feet wide. And so I'm gonna drive my car by and look through there and see the courtyard isn't gonna happen, but it kind of wasn't gonna happen anyway, because what you're gonna see is the council chamber sticking out.
Right.
So it kind of was a moment that's not gonna happen anyway, but what it is a diagonal lobby. So you're gonna come in and immediately turn some direction. You're never gonna walk straight through because you'll run into the back of the restaurant. And I don't think there's a way around that. I'm gonna guess there's not a way for you guys to plan around that, but that it may just be live. That was the only kind of.
Yeah.
We've really squeezed this plan down about as much as we can, but I think that that's a very good comment. But there's a lot of opportunity. This is a diagram. There's a lot of design that's going to happen here. We need comments from staff. There's a lot of shaking that can happen, and so we'll continue to look at those alignments. I think you're absolutely right. We're trying to hold one of those archways all the way through, so when you come in, you see it. But there's also these reception areas that we're that are gonna
Yeah.
change based on comments we're hearing, and so that
So-
lobby's a whole study.
So if we do it, I think you're gonna end up here, 'cause I think it's just a site constraint, I think you're pushing and shoving and, but the lobby it can't feel like a mistake. When we design the interior of that lobby, it's gotta feel like you meant it, and there's a reason that that's a path through there like that. It can't feel like, oh, didn't work out. Oops. Yeah, anyway, so that's, yeah, all right. So that's fine, but overall, I love this, I have super minor tweaks that I would request, like making this like thicker, the thing Rick requested, the gas lamps versus the openings, I think that's a lovely discussion to have today. But I think this is ready for prime time. Cliff?
Yeah, great comments, Steve. Just thinking about that lobby, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a very strange concept to go into a lobby and you don't see sort of the mirror image on the opposite wall.
Right.
Mentally, it's what we're programmed to expect. So that jog, I think, is just needs to be handled very sensitively. But I agree with everything that other people have said. I think the right-hand scheme 1 is unquestionably better than scheme 2. I kind of like what you did with the windows and the upper archway windows for outside of the chief's office in scheme 2. I think that's kind of interesting. The blank space below those 3 arches doesn't bother me as much. I think it is very traditional. That's sort of what you see with a lot of the mission buildings, that blank space. There could be, a wall fountain or signage or something, but that doesn't bother me. Let's see what else. I think the only thing I don't really care for still is on the admin portion, the bump out that you've now pushed back, the lower windows, for me, are not quite working still. That sort of rhythm that you've got of one big, one small, one big, one small, one big.
Where are you talking
The
about?
bottom right-hand side.
The bottom right-hand windows.
Oh, there, sorry, I was on the back of the building.
These
Got
little
it.
guys
Uh-huh.
here.
You got it.
Yeah. But maybe it's just a detailing thing.
You figured it out?
But other than that, I think it's really good. Good programs.
Excellent.
Okay,
I think we're so close. It's terrific. The one on the right. I'm gonna say that Clive may have something in those windows, and it may be that the definition or a little bit more detail on those will make those windows work better. But, this is all to me minuscule stuff that can be dealt with. And whether or not we have slits or lights on the side of the 3 doors, I'm not ready to argue about that. The open space on the left, I really can see this fountain on the on the ground in front of that with some landscaping behind it that would really set off that wall, and you wouldn't even notice it's open space. It would be like the lovely old Mission Gardens. So I kind of think it's there. I'm not ecstatic about the lower. It looks like bricks. I don't know what they are. You're running across the front of the building.
Well, right here, this was just a thought about stone, like
Yeah.
a bench, someone to wait.
I
But it was basically that stone tile just coming up and
Yeah,
becoming.
okay, that can be developed as we're choosing the materials.
With the landscape.
Yeah, with the,
Yeah.
so I'm not,
Yeah, I wrote down for you signage.
on the wall that's on the side of the admin building, that's been pushed back, is that westernmost wall, 22 feet?
You're saying this dimension, right? This,
14.
from here to here?
On the far side, that's towards the neighborhood, is that, you move that side of the building back, is it now 22 feet going back? What's going on down the side?
Right over here, I think what we're talking about. This
We haven't
dimension.
ever looked at that facade, have we?
This,
No, but I'm looking
the
at
Ashfield
It's
facade.
probably, you'd think it's gonna look just like that.
It's the administration building on the west side, that wall right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Is it identical to the front?
Planning office.
If you look at the
Well, it's
program
got
behind
windows.
it,
They don't have
their
windows.
offices up there,
It's got stuff.
imagine it'd still be this very similar language rolling around.
As the front.
But
Yeah.
it's got a stairway.
So if you
Yeah,
look
back
at
in
the
the
back
corner,
side,
yeah.
That's all the way in the corner, but I think we were talking about, this is Fair Oaks, this is the Fair
That's
Oaks,
all windows.
this is Ashfield. So this is all workspace, it's all office. And
We're
so
gonna
they
wanna
can-
see that elevation at some
Yeah,
point.
it's
You
sort
might
of-
step the stair in or something so that,
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
It
are these
reads it.
windows wrapping around, we're gonna see those on the side, or
Mhm.
what's happening on that?
I know this is oblique, but that would be the thought, is that those private offices
Yeah,
there
that's
in the
right.
pink, you get window openings, would continue to work.
Very similar. to
Until you
here.
hit the stair.
I like the second floor windows, not the first.
Anyway, I like the detail of the roof that sticks out in the, between the two, stories all the way around the building. It really makes the, spaces become more, yeah. I don't see it, Thinking Lake Tower. I like them all.
okay, Rose.
Okay, a lot of good comments, I don't wanna, be repetitive. I really appreciate you doing that flat facade, it makes me appreciate that, concept, which is my preference. I like the little bump out, I think it adds character, to the elevation. I think that's been fairly unanimous, I don't know, but that's my preference. The one question I have are the windows above the arches on the entry. They seem a bit smaller than the one on top of the admin. They appear just a little too busy for me, but, that's sort of another little detail. Were they done on purposely to be smaller and you have more windows above there? It seemed a little.
He said he was
busy.
matching it to the arch width, which is 8 feet, so
Oh,
those are gonna be
really?
like 3.5-foot windows.
There's 7 of them,
But we have-
there's not an even number of them,
Well,
which makes it
the-
weird.
Yeah, so
Our numbers have
we
been
were-
better.
We were working on that calibration, we had 8 at first, and it was too much, and so what we're trying to do is, shrink them down a little bit more. So I think that having them line up just felt better. We'd already drawn the massing of it, but this is the latest kind of drawing where we're trying to get it to balance out all of those.
With the post in the middle of the arch.
And that post, though, is something we have flexibility with. If you look at some of these buildings, you'll have a thin post between 2 windows and something that's a little bit wider to get a different cadence across the facade. So, that's something that the 3D is kind of trying to, play with.
So Rose, would you make it the full width, or like what?
No, it's just hard because this is at an angle, and, if you see it up front, what am I seeing? Are all the windows lining up with, arches? I mean, this is again, you have one window.
Would it feel better if the windows were a little shorter, so they didn't try to mimic the bigger windows to the right?
No, but there just seem to be a lot of them, and I don't know what they're lining up with. Are they lining up with the windows below, the arch?
He's got the mullions lining up in
You
the
see the
center,
detail?
on the
of
right
the
hand
TV
side
up
at the
here?
top.
Yeah,
The mullion in the center of the arch, and then a
Okay, so
skinny
that's what
one
they're trying
at the
to do?
post of
Yeah.
the arch.
okay, if there's a
But
reason
it's
for it,
not
and visually,
balanced
okay,
because
yeah, I
there's
just don't, I don't.
Roman architecture, I think they're
But
trying to,
that's a detail, I just wondered why they were sort of looking squishy and small, to me.
Because the right-hand
But if there's a,
arch is
if you look at it
on the other side.
face on, I guess there's a reason for it.
That space behind there, Adam, that's the catwalk going from.
That's a great question. All right, so what you're seeing in that second floor plan is, it's actually it's a double height space, right? That
Right,
lobby is a
right.
double height, right? So
Right.
immediately behind it, there's no occupiable, as George just pointed out, it's actually a volume, so.
it's like a clerestory.
Yeah.
Correct, absolutely. So when you're in there, the idea is we're looking at that catwalk, that bridge connection from admin to police as you go across that large space, and you'll be walking by a void that looks down to the entry, and then you'll be looking at, beautiful wall of clear.
John,
street
you mind
windows.
putting up that page 6 and
Yeah,
highlighting that so everybody can see it?
The whole thing.
yeah.
It's just a catwalk.
And the,
It'll feel like it's open.
That's the
It'll
intent.
feel very cool, it'll feel very modern,
Well, that was the
in
intent.
a cool way, it'll be a nice contrast actually.
Yeah. This is that big,
There you go, right there. And then make it a
the
little
little
bigger.
X's.
right?
He really gets it. So that's the second floor he's showing us. And the windows, can you show the windows, where the windows are right there? Boom, 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 boom. And then behind it's like a 4-foot or something.
Mm-hmm.
Opening.
And then the catwalk and then a big opening over the lobby heading out.
Right.
That's cool.
So, wait a minute, so the admin lobby and the admin lobby, the blue is on the first floor?
No, that's second floor.
Okay, so the catwalk,
Because the elevator's over there, so that'll be, if you're going up what do they do?
You
I,
can
so
do
the
it.
admin.
It's a switchback
Upstairs
on the
is the
stairs.
city manager's office and finance, so if the public comes up, they might need an elevator to come up, so they come up in that elevator, walk across the catwalk, and there will be some sort of stop door
Yeah.
of some kind, whether it's a half door, full door, we haven't figured that part out yet, to stop them from just walking into.
But you may have a little furniture or something there, it's
Correct.
the top admin lobby.
A waiting area on the admin side, and on the opposite side, the PD side,
Mhm.
they'll need a waiting area as well, because their space is also secure.
But you'll have an internal stair if you wanna run upstairs real quick. You have secured space, you run upstairs.
That's correct.
Right.
It's kinda wasted, but
It's a big lobby for the police.
well, it's for either.
No, that,
Where's
okay.
the one that says admin lobby?
This would be
But the
police
second floor
administration.
one?
And then
Yeah,
this
it's
would
really
be-
should be police.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's huge for the police because
Yeah, for the second floor, they have
I
one
don't have that
on
many
the ground.
visitors.
All right, well, we're gonna, the city council negotiate that deal.
thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Rose, did you think?
No, I was just gonna say, I think that, you know, the lobby, the concerns about the lobby are valid, but I think that as they rework this with the comments that we have about, you know, the expectation of what you see when you go into a lobby, I think that'll be worked out, you know, you don't wanna hit a wall and the other thing, I agree with the comments about the, chambers, and I like the side light windows, I think that adds some interest to it. And I thank you for putting the 3 arches and the loggia, I think, again, that's, you know, simplifies it. I also, with the comment, I have no problem with that blank walls, I think, you know, sometimes too much is too much, and there'll be a lot of things going on against the blank walls, whether it's landscaping or something, to, balance the windows and everything, all the busyness that's going on in the building, and plus it's less expensive, but anyway, never mind that. So, that's it.
All right, I wanna summarize the things I heard that are differences, or potential differences, or things we can clear, and if I miss something, get it on the list, and then we'll vote. So, on the 1 versus 2, I think it's a no-brainer, it's scheme 1. I think there's nobody who said, gee, I really want scheme 2, it has some potential, but it wasn't like, okay.
No.
So scheme 1, we won't even vote, it's just scheme 1. The first floor windows on the admin, that sounded like there was some,
Yeah.
not sure if it's fully worked through, okay. The front of the chamber, right there, whatever that facade is, the rear of the building, the chamber, we'll call it the chamber front.
Yeah.
That's worth some discussion, windows versus whatever, okay? The Campanile, Elizabeth brought up strongly, I didn't hear anybody else, but I think we can just bring it up and see if there are strong feelings about that. Blank walls was a back and forth, kind of a, gee, I really don't like it, or hey, it'll get worked out in the landscape, let's just move on. So I think that we can resolve that. Were there any other big issues that anybody felt that are remaining? And not hit
We
them?
were gonna see the elevation, as for the elevation of the other side.
Yeah, of the other side for the future, but for, in terms of what we approve, I'm all focused on March 21st. In terms of setting them loose on plans, is there anything else to discuss tonight?
It sounded like there was agreement on the roof issue that I had raised, but I don't consider that a big issue.
It's also the depth of columns on the loggia for the council chamber.
I didn't hear anybody,
Here on the-
yeah, we can talk about the depth, yeah, okay.
And see, maybe the smooth finish versus the
You know, there's kind of
concrete.
a
Right.
corner.
I think that'd be good.
Yeah, finish, okay.
There are a few-
Any other things that you felt were not clear, like we are?
Very hard at it.
That's it? Okay, so let's go through it.
Just kind of be nice.
First floor windows, who loves what's there, says don't show us any other alternatives, just go with this. Who feels that way? First floor admin windows, right here. Well, I think that's more good, yeah, but this thing is, who is just pleased as punch, let's just go with it. Who could live with it if they had to have it that way? Yeah, kind of all of us. So I think this is worth a little discussion. And I think the thing I heard is, I don't like it going from big to small, big to small, big to small. That was the negative comment I heard, as opposed to I don't like the recess. I didn't hear anybody say I hate
No,
the
nobody
detailing.
said that.
Yeah, it was just size.
It's
The
just
recess is a nice feature.
the way
Yeah.
it's
I don't oppose the
presented.
So do you guys want to talk about that a little bit?
About the windows?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we were reacting, and I think, to some of the comments of the last year, right, which was kind of this even A all the way across the
Right,
facade.
right.
So we thought we'd study something that was a little bit more AB, right? Just to look at what that would feel like. You know, there are residences across the street, granted, right? And, you know, that having maybe a little bit less glass felt like it wasn't gonna be a bad thing. You know, during the evening when the lights are on. And we think there's, you know, with the heights of these windows, which would be tall, you're gonna get a lot more light into them if they're taller. Windows are kind of shorter, squatter ones. So we thought that, you know, we would study just an AB across there.
What if you did the same size window but only had the reveals on 1, 3, and 5?
Yeah, that's something we could definitely look at across there. I mean, right now it's, yeah, that's something we could definitely look at, as long as we think that
It'll
relief
read
is
like
important, right?
AB.
Yeah, we can definitely study that.
Anybody else?
I like that
have
idea.
any-
I like the
I think we should approve it and they should come back. There's gonna be some other
Yeah,
small features.
don't just do what you
This isn't
said.
it.
You guys are the architects.
It's just an idea, you
I
can
know,
come up
that's
with
just,
things, but
I
that's an
know,
idea.
I mean, it's just, you know,
Okay.
the direction is that
Yeah.
this doesn't work and we should come up with something
What I
better.
want to-
There are lots of other examples in all this designs
I
that we
think
looked
the
at.
AB idea is good,
Yeah,
better than the AAA.
yeah.
Right,
It's more interesting.
clustered.
Yeah, I think so
Some kind
too.
of a clustered window
So-
treatment.
So who likes it that it's ABABA?
As,
No,
In
Not
some
as it
form,
is.
so that all 5 aren't the same.
well, like a clustering. I mean, there's images that they've actually given us that I don't think I
I
have.
haven't heard anybody else ask for the clustering, but I heard you ask for the.
They've given us images
But
on
you
the
know,
bottom
in
though.
this scheme, it's AAA, but we've gathered them in pairs, right, with a little more depth to it. So that's kind of, and they are shorter.
I
You're right,
think-
they are shorter.
I think you guys should try the image that Steve suggested of making the B or the A, whichever, with the relief, and the other one similar but without. I think that's a good suggestion.
Okay, all right, then and if you have different study you wanna do, send it, just that, don't do the whole facade, just
Right.
the.
Yeah, we'll
okay.
just look at it more detailed.
Yeah, no more second options. Okay, great. The chamber front, who prefers the one that Rick was, you know, this one over here on the left where there are holes cut
I think you're the
with,
only one
I
that's.
assume it would have more detailing though, would have some, like you have the detailing on the right, it would have stone or it would have something, so.
The insets, right?
Yeah.
Insets.
Yeah. Who prefers having windows versus gas lamps?
windows with insets?
Yes, windows that are detailed more like it's
Like in the
detailed
front.
over here, yeah.
I'm
Like windows.
sorry,
Your idea, your
idea,
windows,
Rick's
yeah.
idea, yeah.
Yeah.
It's an easy way to get them up. Okay, does anybody not want that?
So we're talking about these,
Yeah.
just-
Because
Yeah.
the inside,
inside.
if you go to the
These
plan,
guys.
the
Yes,
inside
right there.
is,
Those two.
well, wait a minute.
Okay, so
Where's,
Yeah, we have to work on that plan.
we're looking at plan.
okay.
It's an AV room, but they could,
You can still
No,
get
it's
light
not
into
AV
it.
room.
you could have one, yeah.
What?
On this plan, the
No,
current plan, it's
that's
an
not-
AV room.
and
But
No.
they'll keep playing with it.
That's, it's an AV room?
Yeah.
It's not the bathroom?
We flipped,
No.
we heard you guys last time.
We
You
wanted
said regional
bathrooms on the,
restaurants there.
we wanted it on
It's all
the
true.
train
we
side.
didn't want the bathroom in the.
You'll work it out.
We wanted it on the train side, not on the front side.
Right.
But-
So-
Right.
But on the exterior,
No.
we like the
Yeah.
windows if we can do
Forward.
it. Okay, great, so that's clear?
Mhm.
Window. Campanile.
Okay, can I?
Make your pitch, make your pitch.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
Show the image.
what if, show the image, oh, I'm such an architect, I drew a little, what if we do a little clock tower or something right at that hard corner? Just kind of, you know, right at the front of the admin building, right?
Right there.
Rick liked it,
I'm not tall enough.
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to go all the, you know, over
You
the,
go
it can go to
peak.
the roof line, I mean, it can go up to 34 feet, I think.
Well, if you had a parapet top, you could go to 34 feet, do a project above the eave line.
Yes,
Well, if you were gonna do it, you would take that corner column and just penetrate the
So
roof
we-
line. It'll look funky on the roof, but that's what you do.
You guys looked at making that the radio tower, is that right? Is that what you said?
no.
No, they
That's
were,
an
they were sort of
inside.
smaller.
So I think, if there was gonna be a tower or a campanile on the project, I think some of our initial thoughts with it would actually be something that would be more the public space, you know, the courtyard. Something in that area is what we're looking at. So we're looking at pulling it back. That's where our initial thought. It wasn't right on the front facade of Fair Oaks.
The Campanile?
That wasn't our initial thought on where it should go.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? I'm sorry. The Campanile?
That was our initial thought, that it would sit back into the project a bit more. We'd actually actually be more over where the train station, or where the police station is. You would see it from Fair Oaks, but it wouldn't be sitting right on the front, but it was much more about the front of the public space. That was our initial thought, if we could.
Remember when you said, it felt really pinched because there's a lot going on there?
It
So-
only feels pinched when the
When it's-
door was like, you know,
Right.
yeah, and
So-
it was back 40, 30 feet.
So there's so much going on
Yeah.
as it turns
Right.
that you add one more thing.
Can
Great.
I make a suggestion as well? I mean, if you were to do something like that, would it make sense to have that the stairway that's in the southwest corner of the admin building?
Yeah.
To
Where
make
that little
that,
window is,
yeah, to make that the tower, yeah.
where,
It'd be, and you can see on the back of the building here.
Right, and you could even have some open space into it, it doesn't even need necessarily windows.
I mean, I'm just speaking off the cuff, that's where it felt better, was in that plaza, because it's a much grander space.
Mhm.
It's the civic space,
Mm.
and it just felt like, like all Campaniles, they're in places that kind of mark, there's a Z-axis, right? So it's marking kind
It
of.
would sort of anchor
Mhm.
that corner of
That's a good idea.
So the
public
public,
space.
that public facade felt like if there was going to be one, that we
So,
could look
here.
at something there. Again, it
That's
would,
what he's saying.
as opposed to right on the front door,
It would add some interest to a very dead corner.
it would fix that wall.
Yeah.
And I think it would also sort of serve to anchor the courtyard space. It would be the limit of the courtyard space.
Mm-hmm.
So who would be interested in seeing a proposal on that next time as an alternative? Yeah, I think so, I think that's it. So why don't you, that's a detail, you can put that in schedule later.
No, they didn't, because I said it in the front.
And that's at the admin stand. That's the location. It'll also, I think you should bring, then,
May I
that
ask-
would be with, that's part and parcel, was given us a rendering of the elevation of, what direction is that?
Ashfield.
Actually, it's the to-be-named donor road. Whatever direction that is, that's south?
That's when it was.
West.
rational.
Southwest.
Yeah, so we need that, so that would be a part of doing that elevation.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
in order to give guidance to the architect, because you'd also have to bring that as a recommendation to council, to amend the zoning to some height other than 34 feet. So you want to give a maximum height?
It'd be an alternative. We would send it to council as an alternative.
Okay.
Here's the complying one, and then here's one that you
Rick
can
had
do.
a comment.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
So, we haven't talked about radio tower at all.
Not in a long time.
But
It was gonna go back over there or something. wasn't it?
No, I know it requires height, and we haven't talked about where that might be. If we're going to put a clock tower effectively on that back corner, is there a way to position the things that we need on the radio tower on that? Because I'm concerned we may find that there's gonna be a radio tower coming up on another side of this building that's gonna go up.
Oh, it can't be back in the yard or something? Does it need to be that close?
I think it needs to be
Yes,
right
it's-
connected to
What we
the
were
radio.
told is that it needs to be,
Right.
and Ed probably ought to talk, that it needs to be relatively close for electronic purposes to the police dispatch console. And I think we were given a height potentially of 80 feet. So, I know, and
Oh, now
we
we're talking Campaniles.
You have just ruined your building.
But that's just a very thin antenna.
It's not 80 feet now.
No, it's not.
But it's going to be.
But we're there.
You've gotta be able to move
Ed,
that
can
away
you-
from the building.
can-
There's no
can you
way.
talk
You
to
have to
the-
put this on the building.
To the change in the police frequencies and
That's a
what that
pushback.
means, to the extent that, you know.
Yeah, I think we would be kind of shortchanging it if we just did the same tower out there, same height. The whole bandwidth is changing in public safety, so the tower's probably gonna have to get up a little higher. We kind of envisioned it out in the back towards the parking lot, towards the railroad tracks, and a line of sight's real important, so, you don't wanna put it like adjacent to this tower that you're talking about.
I think you're gonna have to find another place to
Do
put
you
it.
need
In
it
the
in the
park,
security
he's
area?
talking in the secured parking
We'll have to put
area.
something around it, yeah.
I mean,
Like-
will
yeah,
will
we
the
can't just
train
have
whisk
people
by
walking
and whip it around?
Of course, we'll have it on our cameras as well,
No.
and the security piece.
You really don't want it on your building if you don't have to have it on your
Correct.
building.
I think when they tell us we have to look
No
at it on
problem,
the building,
let's
we'll
go,
look
move
at
on,
it.
move on.
I think we don't wanna find words that we don't know we have
Just
to
a
find.
question.
Okay, the blank walls, who is not okay leaving this for the landscaping? Who wants to really address the front blank wall in particular, because the back one's probably gonna have to You still wanna address it now? Get on it?
No, I just wanna say that I would like to see something there, something other than just the blank wall. And even if it is a wall fountain, I think that'd be great, but
Or
that's not.
landscaping.
Or, I guess
Or an
landscape.
landscaping
Yeah.
fountain.
Yeah.
Or the name of Atherton, you know, etched in stone, Atherton Civic Center, or Atherton in big,
Mission Atherton.
yeah. So because in that other plan that we had, it, you know, was Atherton, they had it right on the one I showed you.
Yeah. That was
Across, there's no room
Okay.
across the doorway.
All right, so we're gonna leave that for now. We're gonna wait for landscaping. And then we talked about the plan for the side of the building. The column depth, does anybody not feel like we should translate the column depth to the arcade there on the side of the City Hall?
That's a good
Or
suggestion.
Council chambers, is that
Yeah,
okay?
the column depth, yeah,
Make those columns be
absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah,
gotta be
yeah.
chunky.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then the finish, does anybody not feel that this should be
Oh.
a smooth stucco
No, it's
versus
gotta be smooth.
concrete board form?
Yeah, we
And
don't
are
want
you
this.
gonna comment on that topic they wanted to address?
Don't want
It all
this.
depends on.
Don't want
Oh, that was my comment.
That was
That
Rick.
was Rick's
That was
comment.
Rick, yeah, Rick gets me.
It's only because I told
All right,
him.
so I think this can
Depends on cost.
be a reasonable, yeah, great. Yeah, oh no, board form is not cheaper. Because it's concrete. You can put stucco on a wood house.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, so I hazard to say that I think we're ending the design component of this building, this meeting. And we're heading for a March
21st.
7th next meeting for this group. And the only question is, were those things, my instinct is we can't afford to be wrong on the 7th. We don't have the time to be wrong. And so I would feel better if a subcommittee, with me on it,
Of course.
met with these guys next Monday here in Atherton at like 4:30, like a comparable time. And just made sure that they're translating into, we have a campanile on the staircase. Here's an alternative, here's some window alternatives, here's, I just think it would be healthy to do that.
Are you talking about the 29th?
Yeah, a week from today.
But then
I
we
thought the
still
seventh
meeting on the
was-
seventh.
I
No,
know someone
it's
else.
subcommittee.
Okay.
Subcommittee, just to make sure it's happening, that it's not a last minute, we pull a rabbit out of our hat on Monday morning, the March 7th.
I agree.
Is that,
So I
okay?
have a question.
Yeah.
Would you then ask us to meet again on the 7th?
Yeah, but we, the one on the 29th could probably be done WebEx,
It might not be, they may be.
if you really don't wanna come down.
It's more about, we
Time.
need to move fairly, it seems silly, but we need to do a lot to get to the 21st.
Yeah,
And probably,
that's why I want you to feel really confident on the 29th that you're on the right path.
I think we feel pretty,
But it could be flimsy, it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't have to be at this level, it'll be people who are in the business, and it can be done on flimsy, and here's where we're heading, is this the right direction, I feel.
When you say flimsy, like tissue paper.
Tissue
over-
paper,
Tissue paper
and
over
we're doing a
drawings.
WebEx, and you're walking us through it, it gives us a chance to say, oh, I think you didn't hear it the way we heard it. I just wanna make sure that you're going the right way, so on the 7th, we're done. And you're just preparing, you're halfway to preparing for the 21st.
Oh, I know, there was one more comment I
A WebEx checking,
had, or an
so,
Yeah,
observation,
I WebEx would be okay.
just an observation.
so they're not driving all the way down.
It cuts 2 hours of time out of their day, yeah.
Can I,
Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I just wanna bring up an observation, is this, on the site plan? If we all take a look at the new site plan, and it's similar on
Here's the newest one.
other site plan, now I've got one. So,
Page 5.
just to get perspective in everyone's mind, I really would like everybody to go outside and stand in front of this town hall and take a look, across the way, past the cedar tree area, and visualize where this new council chambers is being proposed.
Do you think it's too close or too far?
I think it's very close.
You think it's very close? Got it.
Can we do that at the end of the meeting?
Well, you can do it any
Well,
time
we
you want.
can't do it after the meeting.
I
Yeah.
just want, if everybody
Yeah.
takes a quick look at, because you see where the cedar trees are,
How many feet is
and
it?
I think Steve's car is parked right
There.
there.
so it's the distance from this
Face to
entrance
face.
to the end
is a walk. Right?
It's how many?
90 feet away.
The distance between the
Face
two
to
buildings.
Yeah, the roof line of the new council chamber to the slight projection of the roof line of this building.
Oh,
is
what about
90
the face of the building?
It would add probably an additional 5-6 feet, because each one is inside about 2-3 feet.
So it's going to 100 feet then?
95.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just an observation, it may be perfect, it looks, I don't know if there was a way to push the council chambers, you know, back a bit.
Back towards the railroad?
No, just
Make it
Oh,
short.
make it shorter. Yeah.
Shorter.
Shorter. But,
Remember, the line is there, the water line is there.
well, yeah, I'm not saying bad, good, or indifferent, I just wanna make sure everybody understands it, and I would like to have a better understanding of it, because it looks like it's, the front of the building is like where the curbside is right now of the road. Would that be right?
Say it again, it was-
Where the current road is, it's curbside.
I think we should walk out there. Is that really a mistake, George?
It
Is that
still looks
crazy
like
for us
it's
to
an
walk
80
out there?
feet.
Can we take a
It's
field
still an
trip
80
during a
feet chamber, you
meet, a
know.
notice meeting?
I can't do
Okay.
this.
So you're not going, or you're just going out there and
It's
video.
We're
still
going
an
outside.
80
Somebody's
feet
facing out
chamber.
95 feet.
Yeah, let's do that.
I know,
But
I thought we were
that's-
gonna reduce it.
So that would
Well,
be the other thing.
I've been telling you to shrink it for 6 months, so
And
what's
you were
wrong
so
with
right,
shrinking it?
Mrs. Fisher,
Yeah.
we need to shrink it.
So it's still.
But
says
then
80
I think our
feet.
city manager last time said about the EOC.
But
Yeah.
If the council wants to, so the council will make the decision on the size of the council chambers. We are merely providing architectural direction. This is a scalable council chambers. If they wanna shrink it, they can shrink it. That'd be my opinion. I do think the spacing on the side is something that we should,
Really be comfortable
it's
with.
worth walking out there. It's not hard to pace off 95 feet. It's about, it's 32
Gordon, you gotta take measurements.
big steps. I can do it. I'm gonna,
Have a
Can
good
I,
pace.
but I don't want us to be out there for 20 minutes. It's a big waste of time. It'll be all right, but it'll happen. You think that'll happen? Should we just let everybody do it?
Let's take 5 minutes.
Let's go.
Wait, Steve,
Field trip.
if the council is gonna make the decision, we can't affect it tonight anyway.
No, we can.
Well, I
can.
what's the point of it?
Come on, let's go.
If you make it smaller, you're gonna save 5 or 6 minutes.
Let's see if it's an issue or not.
We did. We did.
I know, it's one of those like.
Step off the road.
It rained a lot during the holidays.
Right, or you, it's like, so, okay.
I can walk. I think it comes off that way, so.
Hey, Brett. I have a really good friend who's got a big piece of big.
Well, I think
They
that
just sketch it, just try to get it to say sketch.
I know it's wrong.
Yeah, like the plastic.
See
Well, right.
full speed
And
ahead,
it's
so
a
I
little
would love
bit
to
older
get
house,
rid
but
of
the
this. So it's either one or the other.
And he's short, about 200 tiles. So when I hang on to those puppies, I know on my roof, I have tile, I have 50 extra tiles, some bars right after Ridgeline, that I have stored under the house just in case. And I just pulled 2 or 3 out to replace a couple cracked tiles recently. So, cause they don't make them anymore, they're going to error.
Really?
Yeah. So you might think about that. I
I've
mean,
had
that's
them
a,
15 years.
that's a one, well, boy, it's a good selling point if you ever, or
Yeah.
if you add something to it.
Okay.
No, there are toxic waste on the site, right where you put in the children's playground.
You know, if you want to install the campanile, it's called, I think it's pronounced campanile, you know, because it's the Berkeley.
As far as the timing on any subcommittee decision.
Yeah, but I think it's a WebEx on Monday, it's flimsy.
Yeah,
Too much flimsy.
like I was trying to, it takes a lot to just get to, because
They're not changing any massive.
no, I mean, but the next group is gonna have to have one click more than what we're showing, right? We're gonna have to have a little bit more clarity around the plaza, because they don't have the history of all these meetings, so.
But you could be developing that now.
Problem with her.
None of this changes any of that. This is all superficial detail.
Except that when we draw, there's layering of program, right? So you draw one way, then you add, and then you render. So it's like it's a week. It's a week for.
What you're showing the subcommittee on Monday is just these changes. So
Right.
we just
So
talked about. That's it.
so that would be cool if the 7th worked out to be fine with what the 29th said. So it's even better for
What
us.
we
if
haven't talked about at all is landscaping,
Yeah, you're good. And we're not.
because there isn't really much shown here except lots of fuzzy things and existing trees.
Well, they've got all this, you know, the native species garden is 20,000 square feet.
Yeah, you
And
know
I'm
it's a
going,
size,
who,
yeah.
you know,
But look where it
decided
goes,
that?
it stretches all
I
the way.
know, but.
That means drought
It's
tolerant.
based on where the line is drawn.
It's
So
a big thing,
You
and
so
C3.
it's pretty cool that we've gotten this far. Just a reminder, we're in schematic. And so what we still have to do, and I hope everyone, of course, realizes this, we have to bring our engineers in, and our engineers will have an effect on everything. We have to kind of check in again on the city planning side. And we have to go through right-sizing everything. So I hope you all know and trust that we're gonna be able to keep the intent of what was talked about today, but we still have some ways to go to tweak. It's like the windows have to be tweaked, right, a little bit of this will get.
So what are you asking?
No, I'm just saying.
What's your request?
Give us the, trust us that we can get it there.
Can't do it.
Because
We need a win when we check in.
No, I
Got
mean,
it.
as we get through schematics, we are going to have to move into another phase of design
Yep.
that requires many more consultants,
Right,
right?
which is
And
more
so,
expensive. Yeah.
so as we understand where shear walls are, or moment frames, or whatever it is, things will shift. So I just hope you all know that these are sketches, informed sketches, but we still don't even have the furniture or the doors in the latest plan. So all I'm saying is, I know everyone's hoping that, okay, we decided this, just know it's going to evolve. And I think this is not about,
Right.
this is not about the 29th.
9th.
This is about
21st.
21st.
March
This is about,
21st.
the end game, really.
Mhm.
So
It's a
just
look
me
and feel.
saying,
It's a look and feel.
It's really advanced conceptual. We're calling it schematic because you were in your next phase of your contract, but it's advanced conceptual.
it's pretty advanced for
Yeah.
where the exteriors and not where the interiors.
Okay, so what's your request though? What do you want us to?
So it would be best for us if we can get a check-in on the 29th of a few of these things. I think there
Got
were
it.
2 of these things. The camping is a big deal if it's in or out, right? Because there's
Yeah.
gonna be a cost to it. That's not a
So the the check-ins are the campanile, the windows on the front of
Right,
the admin building.
Right.
first floor.
Inside,
First one.
So I,
inside.
so
So
I
that's
would,
the whole first floor.
so my ask would be, and I don't even know if this is acceptable, if we could get the agreement on what it needs to be next week, then we can spend the appropriate amount of time to develop the rest of the site, because we've been talking about one building and 5 feet around that one building. And we haven't really, and I think we feel comfortable about the development of the landscape, and we'll wrap that all in, but it takes time to get those folks back in. They were put on hold, and so they need some time to ramp back up. So I guess I'm saying, we need all the time we can, so if we can get an A-OK, with whatever the committee turns out to be on the 29th, that would be preferred. That would be better for all of us to develop enough for you guys.
Steve, it seems to me that the base is accepted and that there's some tweaks
Yeah.
that you want to talk about next week, so maybe the committee could approve it today, so they know it's a go. But there's just some tweaks that there are these, the campaign
And no
is a
March
big
7th
tweak.
is what you're
Camping
saying.
has a-
No, we're gonna meet on March 7th to approve
You gotta see what this.
what's going to the town.
Oh,
In our dream world, it'll be a very quick meeting. But the other thing we're gonna wanna talk about is budget. When are you guys starting your narrative? So that Paul can do his budgeting, so that if on April 4th, which is our next meeting after our public meeting, can we send it to council with a budget?
Right, so we said that if, and we have to develop drawings 4 weeks after you give us the final. So that's not after, if we're gonna still do 2 weeks of iteration, then it's 4 weeks from that time, and then 2 weeks for Paul to do estimates, so that's 6 weeks out. I mean, so that's why the sooner the better,
Yeah,
obviously.
That's why if you proved it today, we might get it by.
Yeah, my sense is the only thing
No, I
that
get it.
is a cost issue, because I think windows this way or this way are not gonna be a cost impact.
This
But
is superficial.
tower, no tower is gonna be a pretty big impact on all
As far as I'm
fronts.
concerned, I think we're gonna be in an interesting place when we get the next budget. And this tower or no tower may be one of those things that we go, ooh, if we get there, but if we don't,
The named donor tower. Okay, so, I think that's not a bad idea, Rick. I think it's a very good idea. And I think we're approving scheme 1 with 4 major changes we're talking about. And they are, they are the Campanile study at the admin stair. They are the windows on the first floor of admin. They're providing an elevation at Station Lane, which is gonna be a part of your Campanile and window study anyway.
At Ashfield.
That's what he means, yeah.
What did I call it? Yeah, Ashfield, yeah,
Ashfield.
yeah, correct, yeah.
The
$15 Avenue.
The donor lane.
Donor Avenue.
Donor lane. And then the council entry and columns. I think that's it, right? So there are
Yes.
3 things in the admin building and 2 in the council building. The police building is untouched because it's always so far away you can't see it anymore.
So where does the library fit in?
Did you wanna show us your image of the library? Thank you
Yeah,
for
it
asking.
hasn't.
Looking for that transition.
And maybe, while John's gathering that, let's talk about what you wanna show for the 21st, because that's pretty important too. We would assume a colored site plan, like we showed up there, right, just to locate, 2 renderings of, we have the one for the library already, so similar level for, perhaps it's this elevation, whichever elevation, and then we have something in the plaza.
Do you have, is this in AutoCAD, and are you at a position where you can just do a standing here and rotating around to a 360 or 180?
It's in Rapid, but not
Yeah,
site.
I don't have the model with us today.
And this will be, like, for example, this rendering is gonna be vitally important that you see the front of this building also.
Yeah.
Cause we've designed this whole project around the fact it faces this building and it's not apparent.
Right, right, so
Yeah.
just as a aside, every view, you should just think it takes about a week, right? So that's why we just, and so even when we pull back, we have to re-render, which is fine, because it's important to have it in context, I get it, it's just put that in.
Or responding to your request of what
Yeah,
do we
yeah, yeah,
want you
right.
to have for us.
Right, so that's why we,
You're gonna find solutions for us. We hear the context of the problem. All right. So your package is, why don't you ask, is there a way, do we have like a whiteboard you can put up, here are the things we're gonna provide and then we can comment on that?
And how many sets do they need to know that?
Or the back of, maybe the back of one of these boards or something?
Elizabeth?
yeah, I think we said.
Maybe it's the back of
How
scheme
many
2 because we didn't
sets?
like it.
Is that important?
I don't think
Right,
now.
we're doing through our
Yeah,
applications.
let's see what, so, site
So-
plan,
Yeah,
This shows a pathway going through the native species.
well, sort of.
but you wanna see
Exactly what it
the,
shows.
But number one, the plans have to be huge. Like this size is way too small for a public meeting. Cause
Yeah.
people are gonna be looking across the crowded room and they aren't gonna be able to see anything.
So one of the things Christine just brought up, that we were thinking of having, 3 separate stations, so people could cluster around each one that, and it's not just one set for everybody to look at. Okay.
By the way, we are not gonna show a progression, I don't think.
No.
Do we wanna show a
No.
progression when we start? Okay.
No.
We're
It's
going, no progression, so I know you guys are like 60-some pages in this PDF. We're not,
600 pages.
we're gonna do like 6 things.
So
Period.
is it on the screen or is it hard boards?
Hardboard.
Hardboard, so just like it's at the
At the
Culver?
pavilion.
Okay.
And
It's
our-
at the park.
Yeah.
And our council members are gonna
Yeah.
present it, if I recall, isn't that what we got to before?
Yeah, so size, yeah, you're right, the boards have to be,
Huge.
yeah, it's a tough room.
4 by 6 or something, big.
Big.
There could be one projection, but
I
Right.
don't know, I
Right.
think if you have, you know, one projection that big on that, is that, that's not 4, that's like 2 by 4.
It's either 30 by 42, it could go up to 36 by 48,
but
which is pretty
If
big.
it was, if
Yeah,
only
36
one
by
image
40
was
is fine.
on that one size and then another image on the other size,
Like when you guys squeeze all these little details on,
yeah.
I know it looks professional, but it makes
No.
all the other images too small. so.
And
Yeah.
it's confusing,
Paul,
Yeah.
Pauline,
I wouldn't do it.
I know when you did Sacred Hearts, you did a walkthrough. It was
A fly-through?
Fly-through.
Yeah,
They're not there
Can we
yet.
have a fly-through?
we could do a
The
fly-through, but
site.
only that. I
Yes,
mean, that would
but I'm
be 3
thinking-
weeks from now.
It's a month from right now.
Yeah. It is helpful. Do you remember the level though? It wasn't this level.
It was beyond, it was way beyond.
Okay, so site plan, which really is a landscape plan, so it probably is this thing with not so big,
And
right?
get rid of some, like, when you get it on the
You
page,
like that?
I
fit
like,
it to the page.
but I
so
like
don't
it
want
better
junk
with
sticking
the outdoor areas, this image, but you show where the cedar tree play areas, where the civic
Sure.
center
Right,
areas,
it's
where
the
the native
landscape
garden
plan.
is, so
Right.
people can get the feel for those open spaces. I think they're really critical to
Yeah.
this.
We
And
had
can I make a
plantation
suggestion
on the
about
bottom
the
before.
Cedar Tree play area? Take the little play things off of it, you know, those little images, like the logs and the boulders and stuff.
Oh, you didn't like that on the bottom?
You know,
Well, show where the trees are. I think
well,
that's important.
yeah,
to
show where the trees are. They're a little gem-like, you know, to me. They're you know they're faceted because they're just I don't see where it is now, but I don't
It's
know.
right
To
here.
me, yeah, it just looks kind of. What are those things?
I think you don't need them. I think if you show the
Yeah.
trees, that'll give, people are currently familiar with the trees.
Right? They're gonna. What are those things?
Unless you have children and
Little
you
play
use the library a
structures.
lot and you're wondering if there's a place for them to play.
Well,
How many hundreds
I
of
think
children
leave-
come to this place every week?
yeah. Leave it to their imagination
Well,
because
I'd leave in the language cedar tree play area.
yeah.
In fact, in some ways, that meeting might be a good time to solicit input
Yes.
from the attendees
What-
as to what they would like to see there, since otherwise we're just saying, here's what it is.
Yeah.
Take it or
Yes,
leave
We
it.
yes.
haven't done the landscape phase yet,
Right,
so that would be the
and you know,
interesting part of it,
that's
yeah.
just a placeholder, I mean, nobody's made any decisions about what those things are.
Right.
So, on the site plan though, just, like, when you guys do this to be totally comprehensive, it makes the plan so dinky. You know, it's there, don't have, and then make that as big as you can, fill the whole page with it. And then I think we also want a blown up, don't you guys think we want a blown up one that's sort of inside the admin building to the library, so it's twice as big that you can read what's that interior courtyard?
So it's like, it's basically this, but showing where the deck is for
All
the library.
that, yeah, this is where we're gonna have activities, basically. This is all the space where we're gonna have town parties.
Right.
From that to the beginning of the library.
To the face of the
That's a good
library,
suggestion.
yeah. So you really blow that up,
That's
so
a
they
good
go, oh, wow,
suggestion.
isn't that lovely?
You know, because in our master plan scenario, we had that big square thing, that was like an acre
Right.
of ground,
Yeah.
you know,
Town
that
green.
crisscross,
Town green,
the town green was an acre.
Well, that's what this is. This is more.
No, it's not.
No.
No, no, no.
All right,
This is,
Okay, so I think we imagine we can do one huge site plan, like it's that big.
yeah, and then a blow up of it.
That's what you said.
That's from the face of the admin to the face of the library.
you would want.
So you're gonna have two site plans, one that's the whole site and one that's the like the courtyards.
Yeah, no, I see that. It's in this little list of files.
Some big ones, big boards.
John, did that make sense to you? Did you
Yeah,
understand that? There are
one
two
thing-
site plans?
Pauline also threw out, and this would be another way that we could think about it, is another option would be to split the site in half
No,
and then just do it on two boards.
You fold
you
it.
won't get the feeling of, you want to feel like you can walk all the way from the library to George's office and.
Yeah, not
Tape
split.
together. Oh, tape them together?
Tape together, so
Oh, you
it's
guys are
folded out like this, right? because it is a long site anyway.
Yeah.
And it would
That's
fill the
That sounds cool.
vertical.
Yeah, actually,
So
that sounds good.
then you would feel like you're in it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then that would be holistic,
Good.
so.
right,
Yeah.
So
right,
then
I
we
like
have just
that.
one really giant,
I think that's a great idea.
we could have little site plans for the view if you're thinking that people need to know I'm looking this way, or, you know, like if you have this view and you're looking like a little site plan. But
And who's
to
coming?
explain.
Are all three of you coming? Who's coming and presenting? On March first.
I thought city council was presenting.
Mhm.
I thought,
Yeah.
and we're just there for any questions that might
Well,
come
that's
up.
right.
Elizabeth was
So
there,
I don't-
weren't
I
they
wasn't
there for
assuming
Q and A, but
Yeah.
they're
Yeah,
not
they're-
presenting,
they're-
you're
okay.
presenting,
Right.
Steve.
That's right.
And I can't remember who else we decided would be presenting.
Yep.
Elizabeth is in the start and the finish,
So
you're
then
in
I present-
there.
Okay.
We can let Rick, present.
Well, we
He's
can
so,
share it.
yeah,
Smooth wall.
Okay.
smooth walls.
All right, and then you're gonna have elevations, right?
She can be.
Well,
Well,
perspectives, right?
perspectives.
Because elevations are
Perspectives.
scary for
That's what I
everyone,
meant.
right?
Respect that means.
So we showed the three.
And then you need one of the the three, and we may have the one of the donor lane, but it's not that important.
Do you think people need to see all the detail of the plan?
No,
Ooh.
Cause it's
No.
maybe too
not,
much,
no,
right?
don't go there.
Yeah.
You mean going on the inside?
Yeah,
No.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, because that would be too,
we're not there.
Tamma,
Yeah,
Tamma High.
just gonna lean over to big Jim is and,
Yeah, we don't.
so,
So 3 views.
three views. And then, yeah, if we're not going inside, then that's easier, okay. Okay,
Hmm.
Yeah.
And add the perspective of, you got the part where you add the perspective of the,
Yeah.
yeah.
we need the.
The front of this.
Yeah, especially because that's coffee and.
And if you were gonna do an inexpensive flyby, you would pick a point in the courtyard. Somewhere, man, it doesn't work, does it? There's nowhere to stand and see everything.
That would be a nice.
I guess you could
Move it
stand in
down.
front of council chamber and rotate, but it doesn't work, there's nowhere.
you can't see anything.
There isn't a thing, is there?
Why can't you see if you stand over here?
There's not one spot that if you turn, but did you won't see that face?
Oh, that over there.
Yeah, the way they're lined up, there's just nowhere quite to stand that you see everything.
So
This needs to be pushed
we think
over.
things like
percent?
this help.
I've been saying that.
Do you guys agree?
Goes away.
Yeah.
All those
You don't
details.
like
Yeah, you don't
you don't like those.
Gone.
A material
No.
board.
Gone,
Don't-
no,
don't-
don't.
Unless you've got a color board with finishes, you know, that you're gonna say, well, these are our, you know,
Less is more, we don't
Yeah.
wanna give them things to comment on.
No,
Oh,
no,
the
no.
tiles need to be
And it have-
multicolored,
yeah,
and,
they
no,
put it
they,
aside.
no, they shouldn't.
So those things haven't.
no, they have.
So.
Well, except we're not doing.
Resist the urge, we know it's in your book, it's part of the architect's manual to do that. Yeah, the drawings are far enough along now, you don't need all that stuff.
Yeah,
And I like the little shadow images of the guy, you know, with the pipe and the little dog
Yeah.
and the, you
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
things like that.
People
That's
sitting and
very
having
clever.
coffee.
yeah.
And sitting, having
Yeah,
coffee,
that's good.
kids, yeah.
What's missing is something greened up in front, like there is no sense of terrace in the front or in the back.
But there's not enough here.
Uh-huh. That would be nice to have something 2 weeks from now, to just say, something that's ambiguous, vague, but it looks more cozy.
I'm changing my
Well,
mind.
this won't be so cut off anymore, right? This will have the whole page.
You know,
So it'll be a
you know,
page
that
per
looks-
I think
image.
I like this
Kind
one.
of.
Well, it's not gonna get much
What's
bigger
out
than
here?
it's,
There's
Well, I
some,
mean, you
there are
put the
little
sky.
tiny windows.
Yeah, you
Just
can-
get
you would get more
sky.
sky, right?
You might get a little bit more land in
Because
front.
the
I mean,
bigger,
that's just the
the
thing.
bigger we make it, the more detail is
So-
gonna need to be put in. and
Yeah,
it's just-
there are the
it's like
little
that's
windows
about
from
as
that
big as
room
it-
and that room.
From an image standpoint.
Right, this is the plaza thing.
So, I know you haven't ever done this, so you may not be able to do it, but when we're talking about all the pretty views. The view that is less pretty, right, is where you're looking from Station Lane.
Yeah,
And you're seeing the wall around the secured parking lot, and
Yeah.
you're seeing the side of the buildings. If you had a view that showed you the entrance, this library from Station Lane on the left, the old council chambers with the new glass wall, which you see there, as part of that on the left, but you saw through to the new council chambers, and maybe even if you saw some of the secured parking wall, if you were looking from Station Lane this way, I mean, it's not the prettiest view, but it would give you some dimension of the
spaciousness.
of the two building groups, and I wouldn't mind showing a piece of the corner of that secured parking wall because it's not going to be pretty, and I wouldn't mind disclosing that.
It's gonna be pretty.
It could be covered with vines and things, can't it?
Maybe it will be pretty, but I'd still like to, wouldn't mind disclosing it.
So this way, looking here.
Yeah. I don't think that's as important as these other images, but I think it's a different perspective.
It'd be
that will
nice to
give
see
you
the two
some
buildings facing each other.
feeling of the dimension.
Do you think it could be a vignette just to kind of help size it and get the proportion? So maybe not a full, the detail level we've been kind of pushing these, but something that's a little bit more about proportion.
I think what we're getting at is, it's possible that people are gonna say, well, hold on, you've got this sort of ultra-modern library contrasted with the Spanish Revival building, how are they gonna look together? So I think something like Steve is suggesting is a nice idea.
Right.
Right, excuse me.
Well, remember when we said pull back the perspective of those two buildings? That could be the perspective.
You scoot back
It,
and rotate.
that could be the third drawing.
We'll take a look
Yeah.
and see how that
Yeah.
feels.
I can lower it.
All right, so I think what we're doing is, so guys, this is gonna be a serious comment now that we've been around the world. So we are approving this drawing with these slight modifications that we're gonna see next time, and they're gonna move forward in schematics so that we can get pricing sooner than later. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's have a vote.
I'm not gonna go to the camp anyway, so I'm gonna say no.
Okay. They're gonna show next time, they wouldn't move forward on the Campanile because that's going to be an alternative. They would move forward on the building like this, and then they're gonna show us the alternative up at Campanile.
If it's an alternative that's offered, fine. If it's built into the building, you got it.
You can make that work, right? Okay, because it's one corner.
I think the alternative is a good suggestion.
Okay. It's a fundraising. If we have the money, we would add this.
Yeah.
The question is, will we show it on the 21st?
Right.
I think we make that call on March
And
7th.
say,
Alt-
alt
Yeah, I
add,
think we make that call on the 7th. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
add all.
at all. But you're gonna, okay, so that's,
Did you reconcile the distance between the chambers?
Make sure that's clear.
we walked out there.
And what
It's
did you
sketchy.
It's
decide?
completely fine.
Shadowy, sketchy shadow.
We all walked out there like that. It's not an issue.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So I just wanna make sure it's clear too. I think we think, because it's not so absolutely done, that it'll be sort of sketchy, overlaid, like you said, with these transparent
Yeah.
folks, so it feels much more loose. Right, when it starts to be too
Yeah.
hard lined, then people
No,
feel like.
sketchy's good.
Good, okay.
It's outside, the developers, we live by it. Rose asked the question about the distance, but I would just call it at 97 feet. It's almost identical to Atherton's setbacks, 50 and 50. I mean, we are setting back like you would set back between two homes in Atherton, more or less, within a few feet. It feels like it. It feels like, yeah, it's okay.
Would you get a vote on that, Steve?
Which one? Okay, all in favor of moving forward with these, and the Campanile is an alternative. Okay, it's everybody.
Just a point of, I think these.
Then we had 7
voting
yes
members.
votes, yes, and 2 we support you in yes vote.
Oh, excuse me.
So is that 6-0?
6-0, sorry, yeah, Paul's not here, correct.
601. And Steve, one clarification.
Yeah.
You asked earlier if that other postcard had gone out.
Yes,
It has not yet.
so
waiting.
now we're gonna approve the postcard to go out.
Correct, so.
Oh, because the outreach, we're gonna do our ad hoc committee reports, and the only one that has anything to report is outreach.
Correct.
So let's move, yes.
Don't we have to put an image on it?
Yes, that's the.
Yeah,
decision
we'll
we
get to it in the committee report, then that'll get us into the next part of the agenda, we can get out of here.
The sustainable kind of measures were part of the story. Are we gonna have a board for that, or just be able to talk to it? Could be really
Oh,
simple.
for the 21st?
Yeah.
The board would be great.
Definitely.
I think that'd be really nice.
So it could be kind of a compilation of potential,
That would be nice.
Budget
It's like right
permitting.
here, this is nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
things we're thinking
like a
about.
diagram, some images of PV or some other things that typical.
Yes.
So it would be like that.
Potential.
Things things you can fund.
Yeah.
There's that diagram you've got.
You have your own diagram
Right.
for you.
So we'll do that and we'll add some
Except
more
it's kinda not
nicer
it's-
images.
Somebody put a post-it note over it.
Yeah.
What is microgrid?
Weird.
It's all in, so everything is
It's an emergency services,
handled by the PD.
Oh, it's a generator.
not really.
Battery backup.
Close,
Oh.
yeah.
It's
Function.
Okay, great. All right, can we close item 4A?
Steve, you brought up an issue with a subcommittee next
Monday.
Monday, and you didn't
Oh, we need
name
to
the
name the
subcommittee.
subcommittee.
Right.
Who, if you want to be on that subcommittee, put your hand and then we'll make a quick call.
Which
I need two
It's an ad
members to,
to,
Clyde wants to be on it. Anybody, Dee Dee, is that okay? Good, that's it.
That's it.
The three of us, great. It's, we're gonna do a
do
WebEx.
you need a council liaison?
You're welcome to join us.
Right
Urge
answer,
you to join
Steve.
us.
That was four.
And it's-
We need three.
Three, and she doesn't count.
No, but then we had 4.
Oh, did Rose say two? Did you wanna do it?
Well, you have too many. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, okay, so we're good, okay.
No, that's fine. You raised your hand first. That's fine.
You okay, Dee Dee? All right.
Yeah, I think.
I'm fine.
I think Dee Dee would love to have you. So, and it's at, well, the call will be at a WebEx, let's say 4:30, same time, so it's really easy.
That work, Pauline?
Yeah.
And George, we would ask you guys to join us, 4:30, the 29th. Okay? Okay, great. And now, subcommittee reports, library, I think, nothing to report, right? Nope, good. Outreach,
Anything to report?
postcard.
Well, the postcard is,
We're just picking an image, I think.
There's, pick the
Yeah.
image. You want the back or the front?
boy,
It's tougher now. Do both
I'd
of them.
say,
Put them both.
well, can you do both?
Split the
Do them
postcard?
both.
Or can you, yeah, split it, or can you put three images? I mean,
It's pretty big. You could do one on the outside and one on the inside. I mean, you got
Yeah.
lots of room.
Yeah. George, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So which ones do you want, both of them?
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, great. Oh, yeah, well, you have both in the site plan, so you can do the same thing, and then on the outside, you pick one. Probably, I'd probably put the front one.
I would too, yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't look like we didn't do anything, that's
Right.
already there, what are you showing us?
Right.
People will think it's the same building. Yeah, okay, good. Any other comments from the outreach committee? How, oh, did people,
I got mine.
We set up the timing and the speakers and
is
the
anybody gonna
layout.
be there tonight? If people show up and say, we're sorry, it's in a month?
There's a sign on the door.
There's a sign on the door? Okay, good. All right, great, that's,
Came the wrong
They
way.
start at 5:30, so they're
They're gone.
moving
They're
around.
gone.
they came and went. They already came and went, okay. Budget ad hoc committee, so the big thing on budget is, you guys are starting your drawings so that the goal is a month from now, you're giving them Paul Beamer. So he can start his pricing, so it's possible he'll have pricing for, on the April 4th, if we're really, really lucky. You're gonna tell me that's not likely, but it's possible.
She said at least 2 weeks after they finish their narrative, and Pauline has got to coordinate with all her sub-consultants who have been, as she said, put on hiatus for a while, so, we can push toward that, but it's possible you won't have that for your April meeting.
It's possible. And in real issues, we're not gonna do anything with it except pass it to council. We're gonna know how far over we are,
Well, I think unless it's a real,
and then we're gonna say, what do you want us to do?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, unless there's structural things like that, it's not worth doing. It's gotta be a real estimate of what's the point of it.
Ballpark. No, because they have to decide it before. we
That's
draw.
what, Pauline will have, with her sub-consultants, will have as much information. We had a conference call with Paul today, and he described kind of what he needs, and they know that and have a template for it, but you're right. You know, it's certainly gonna be, in each time, you increase the amount of information known and decrease the contingency, hopefully.
Okay, project management, nothing's happening. Green building ad hoc committee, anything happening?
We wanna,
Yes.
no, we wanna.
Let him finish, let him.
Green building ad hoc committee, anything?
No, I mean,
nothing.
we're going
About
to
to meet.
discuss this further.
It's gonna happen once we have a building.
Yeah, the
Okay,
consultants.
Elizabeth, yes.
No.
So, I think we need to have, if we've got 3 images, one of them needs to be the library.
That's true, that's
Yeah.
true.
Who
Teresa?
actually makes this thing?
Teresa.
And can you coordinate, will you be
Yeah,
the liaison to that? and make
Well,
it
he's
happen?
not on the island.
Oh, he's not?
No, he can't.
I'll let
Do you
Elizabeth.
need help with that?
He's a liaison. He's got ideas. You can join any committee you want.
I know. I'll work with it.
Christine, he's gonna help you.
Oh,
Rick,
okay.
he's gonna,
Thank you.
he's been appointed to be a temporary liaison to the
Yeah,
project.
great.
Okay. All right, so that's it, we're on ad hoc committee, we're done. Project schedule, so the big issues are, we've beaten to death that we're meeting on the 7th, and on that day, we're going to bless a beautiful plan that will be gorgeous, because it
has to
will
be.
be, it has to be. And on the 21st, we meet with the public, and then an hour later at 5:30, our usual meeting, and that's at Holbrook Palmer.
Yep.
Over there, okay. And then on the 4th, God willing, and the public willing, we'll send this part of the design to the council and focus in on landscape and other things.
When we have the meeting on the 21st,
Yeah,
be sure to walk through the event garden, because this event garden's gonna be done by then, and it's substantially
over there you
different.
mean? Oh, yeah, okay.
It's a total change to the park. It's
Okay.
really beautiful.
Oh, good.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
you might want to consider that on the 4th, to take the input that came from the public in order to
Yes.
recognize
And
it
give it
and
to the
incorporate it
council.
into give any direction.
But I
to
don't
the
think we're,
design.
unless I think we'll know on the night of the 21st, if it's material or minor. If it's minor, then the question is, I guess we keep working on the plan, but we send something to the council. I mean, they're gonna, remember.
You have the next phase, design
Yeah, I
development,
guess
where
we
they can
keep
develop it.
ushering the plan, cause we're still looking at landscape and everything else, but, okay.
Just wanna make sure that the input from the public is
Yeah.
honored.
Yes,
I think
Got
that
it.
that would be kind of an introductory remarks.
yeah, okay. Gordon, anything else on the schedule you wanna talk about? I did our schedule, but at 6 a.m. is the project schedule, is there anything you wanna talk about? Okay.
No, after tonight, I'll get in touch with Paul, and he will now be able to update the schedule.
And schedule, we used to have Hetch Hetchy on here, but is that now kind of irrelevant
I'm
since
still-
we're building out of the pathway?
It's not irrelevant, we're still proceeding with that. However, as I think it was Clive that recognized it some months ago, dealing with a bureaucracy like that, they are not expeditious. They've been, getting back with me, hey, we're still working on a response to you, and that was about 6 weeks ago, I think, George.
SFPC?
Yeah,
No, we had a telephone conference
Oh,
a
well,
couple of weeks ago.
right, but I mean, the letter you sent, they're still working on the response to that letter.
To that letter, yeah, but they're moving ahead.
Yeah, they are,
But if they don't move the pipeline, then we can still build this
yes,
project, yeah.
yes.
They were aware of the current site plan and where the angle council chambers gives them some more breathing room between the pipeline, that's still not sufficient for them.
Oh,
And they were actually concerned when Gordon told them about the depth of the pipe in some areas and said, oh, well, wait a minute, maybe we do really wanna do this regardless of what the setbacks are. So
Okay.
they're interested in moving forward with that.
Great.
Good.
nothing like a loose cannon, we can something out. Okay. So, any committee and staff member comments? No? Staff, any comments? Other than that? We did, okay, I think we have left to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved, thank you, all right.